Hello everyone, I'm Mike D'Angelo with That's Entertainment, and this is your digital download review of Shovel Knight by Yacht Club Games. If you're a fan of retro games, you know that while there has been an influx of nostalgia-inducing titles lately, the great ones are still far and few between. The folks at Yacht Club Games have some experience with immortalizing retro games. Some of the crew has come from way forward. With a tried and true team, it's almost unheard of to have any missteps. Of course, with Shovel Knight, the developer is treading new ground. The titular hero is paving the way for a brand new franchise. The question is, can this indie title dig through the trenches and solidify its place as a retro-style game worth owning? When you think of a game presented in this style, often you'd prepare yourself for a very loose and fast presentation of a story. What you get with Shovel Knight is actually one of the best plots in this old-school retro design. Shovel Knight used to travel with Shield Knight, collecting treasure, until they ventured to the Tower of Fate, where they fell against the tremendous power of a cursed amulet. When Shovel Knight awoke, Shield Knight was gone, and he fell into a deep depression. He secluded himself for a long while, and it was only the news that the evil enchantress had reopened the Tower of Fate that pulls him out of the darkness he created. With the rescue of Shield Knight foremost on his mind, Shovel Knight sets out across the land. But the Enchantress has the Order of No Quarter at her beck and call, and they will stand in Shovel Knight's way as he fights for one last chance to see his friend. Things are even deeper than they appear at first glance, and there are little sub-stories here and there throughout the game that spice it up even further. One of the things that sets it apart from a lot of the classic games is its use of dialogue, which spices it up and adds a dash of humor. Shovel Knight is a huge homage to 80s gaming. You'll notice that the overworld map is structured very much like the ones in Super Mario 3. The style is very reminiscent of the Blue Bombers games, as is the 8 enemies you face in the story, although this time it's 8 evil knights rather than 8 robot masters. Throughout the game you'll collect sub-weapons that harken back to Castlevania. There are also 2 towns that will present an Adventure of Link feel. And of course there's that bouncing down thrust that will remind you of old Scrooge's cane and DuckTales. All these references aren't presented as a derivative. They're more like a love letter to the era of the gaming that Shovel Knight emulates, and it's a love letter that is so eloquently crafted. Beyond this homage, Shovel Knight is a game that stands on its own and is wholly impressive. The digging mechanic is mostly used to pave your way through stages or collect treasure, but hey, that's what Shovel Knight is all about. And if you're interested in amazing combat, just wait till you get to the last boss battle. When you think of the staples of a great game from the NES and SNES era, you think about the titles that made the best work of what they had, which wasn't that much. There was a minimalistic beauty in what could be achieved, and yet that perhaps made them more memorable. Chances are you still remember the theme songs of those 20-year-old games from just the first few notes. Shovel Knight achieves the same thing all these years later. While it's true that consoles' graphic capabilities are so much more advanced now, making a retro game in that style can be quite challenging, and even more so to include modern effects to the mix. Yacht Club did a fantastic job with it though, and every level brims with personality and life, in spite of the self-imposed visual restrictions. And of course, what retro game isn't inspired by its music? Taking cues from Mega Man, each Shovel Knight stage has its own music, but it goes a step further in presenting individual boss music as well. Knowing full well that the songs are catchy as hell, they've included a quirky bard that you see in the first town, who you can watch shred out the tunes you find along the way. Throughout the course of your adventure, you and Shovel Knight will find sub-weapons in the darkest corners of the stages. These are little more than just throwing knives or axes though, most of the time. There are some items that truly change the way you can advance, and that's an awfully cool thing for a retro-style title that emulates games that rarely change throughout the course of the story. Fully aware of the kind of game they were making, Yacht Club also sneakily released quote-unquote cheat codes that you can find online. There are codes that might give you an immediate boost to health or magic, or ones that change the damage you and the bosses can take, or codes that are completely aesthetic in presentation, like bubbles appearing from your helmet, different colored armor, and so forth. And just because you finish the game, that doesn't mean that the fun has to stop either. Yacht Club included a new Game Plus mode, which offsets the otherwise short game. and because they were so successful in their Kickstarter campaign, they were able to secure Shovel Knight's future for a long time, in the form of several free DLC modes that will be coming out in the course of the next few months. These include different story modes for 3 of the boss knights. That's right, King Knight, Spectre Knight, and Plague Knight will all be playable at some point. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. At the end of the day, Yacht Club Games proved that there's still life in the old school classics from yesterday. Even on their own blog, they talk about how there were naysayers who believed that retro was not the way to go. But as of this writing, they've sold over 150,000 copies. That's pretty incredible from an indie developer, even if they are formed up by some of the industry's finest. One thing is for sure, Shovel Knight has dug himself a nice place in history, lining himself up as a modern classic. That's Entertainment awards Shovel Knight a score of 9.5 out of 10.